In this video, I thought I'd do something a bit different and tell you my story about how I secured my first home with just $3,000. Now, I'm definitely saying this strategy is not right for you. It was what was right for me at the time, for my own personal situation, and for the market at that time. I definitely wouldn't do this in the current market we have now. For some of you, you may have watched my last video about how I lost my first home and then finally did secure my current home. But in this video, I'm just strictly going to go over the math on how I bought my first home with $3,000. So about 2.5 years ago, I was pretty down and depressed because a year and a half or 2 years before, I tried to get into the housing market, but I actually bought a house and land package, went through everything, and then it got declined because of a default that I had from when I was young and dumb, when I was 20, and that came to bite me in the butt later on. And then about 2.5 years ago, I thought I'd have another crack of getting into the housing market, because where I was in the western suburbs of Melbourne, in the fringe suburbs, house prices were booming 20, 30. I think one year it went up 40%. It was absolutely crazy. I was FOMOing hard. It definitely wasn't logical at the time, but it did turn out good. So I was in the western suburbs of Melbourne and I was watching the house prices go up, and I was thinking, far out, I'm never going to be able to afford a home. They're going to double after 7 to 10 years, and it's going to go to $1 million and I'll never be able to afford it. Typical what first home buyers think, and what the media does to prey on first home buyers to make them make emotional decisions, not logical decisions. So what I did is I left my little nest in the western suburbs of Melbourne and I broadened my horizon to figure out how can I get into the housing market with a minimal amount of money. And I'll link another video in the description about my worst investment ever, about how I invested in all these cryptocurrencies and lost a lot of money. And that took a bit of a chunk out of my deposit. And so I only had $3,000, but I was still determined to get into the housing market no matter what. I wanted to live that, Australian dream. And I didn't want to buy a house, just so it would, go up and double over 7 to 10 years. I just wanted a home to raise my family in. I was just newly married then. My son was just born. So I didn't care about, my house, doubling after 7 to 10 years. Like I said, I just wanted a home for my family, a nice, comfortable home, and where I could, create a garden. I could build an office out the backyard. I could make it my own. So the land prices were getting really, really expensive in the outer fringe suburbs of Melbourne. And I said, there's no way these pieces of dirt, these shoe boxes are worth this much. I think, blocks of land of 500 square meters were selling $250,000 to $300,000. And I definitely didn't think they were worth it. And it turned out that I was correct. So what happened is those people that bought those blocks then, now when they're settling on those blocks, the banks are valuing those blocks of land 10 to 20% lower than what they actually paid for. So they have to pay the difference or risk losing their deposit. So I'm glad I didn't buy in the outer fringe suburbs in Melbourne. So what did I do? So what I did is I started looking out at regional Victoria. And this was about 2.5 years ago. I saw the trends that, trains were getting faster. They had express trains that could get to the city in pretty much the same speed as you could get from the outer fringe suburbs, because there was so much stops. Not only that, but I thought technology was advancing, so people were going to be able to, work from home more. A lot more people will be making their money online, or the businesses will go online. So I thought that this was a good time to get into regional, because being close to the city would become less and less of a factor. And then it just turns out we had a pandemic, and that became completely true. It definitely wasn't something I'm a genius I predicted, but I guess that turned out well for me. Not only this, but I think it's a bit scary now. I don't really trust them now, but definitely what could happen in the future is driverless cars. So then again, that will make the commute less and less of an issue. I'm really terrified of driverless cars. I definitely won't be buying them anytime soon, but one day it's going to come. Okay, so where I started looking at was Ballarat, and I started looking at the land prices in Ballarat. And Ballarat's a regional city in regional Victoria. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, 45 minutes from the CBD by drive. But if you can get an express train, it's only about 50 minutes to 55 minutes away from the city. So it is striking distance to the Melbourne CBD. And there's a lot more to offer in Ballarat than the fringe suburbs in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Melton, where I was in, there was nothing really going on there. And I was looking at the land prices, and for, you know, a block of over a 500 square metre block, the one I was looking at, 512 square metres, it was only $130,000. And I thought, this is a steal. But my big issue was I only had $3,000, and I thought, geez, if I can't secure it now, definitely these land prices won't stay this low for long. I think people will start to switch on that there's a lot more value in the regional markets than the fringe suburbs, which have nothing to offer and they're completely overpriced. So I started, you know, negotiating, going to different builders, going to different developers, going to different consultants to try to structure some kind of deal. And so I did come across this consultant, this middleman that worked with the developers, that worked with the builders, and I did come to a deal where I could secure the house and land package with just $3,000. So this is how the deal worked. I put $1,000 down to secure the land, which was $134,000. So I give him a couple $1,000 for his fees and his consulting fees and arranging and structuring the deal, which I later found out was a ripoff. I could have just done myself. And so he took that, and so I secured the land. And here's something that was pretty good what the builder did with me, because at the time builders were desperate for work, is the builder actually paid the rest of the 5% deposit to secure the land. And it wasn't much at all, because the land's only $130,000, so 5% for $130,000 is only $6,500. I already gave $1,000, so the builder only had to pay $5,500 to secure the land for me. And so then I just entered in a contract with the builder to pay them that $5,500 back. But here was the key, and this was my strategy. It was very risky. Again, I wouldn't recommend it in today's market, because the land prices have gone up a lot and they're a lot more overvalued now. Is the land wasn't going to title for a year. So I had plenty of time to pay the builder back over the year, just paid him back every fortnight until that $5,500 was paid off. And it was right for my own personal situation, because there was a lot of overtime at work. So I could just pick up an extra shift, pay the builder back, and that way I secure the block of land at a much cheaper price, rather than saving that money over, you know, 6 months, and then the prices go up 30, 40,000, and that's exactly what happened. Now you're probably wondering, what about the rest of the deposit? Another thing I did with the builder is he paid the 5% deposit for the construction loan. So he gave a receipt to the bank to say that's been paid, they paid that, and obviously, you know, they factored that into the build cost. They've obviously would have inflated the build cost, but again, that just saved me another year of not having to save that deposit. And I knew that, you know, I didn't know, but I was pretty confident that prices were going to go up a fair bit in Ballarat. Again, very risky, wouldn't recommend it. So he paid the build deposit, and and here's the key, is I got the house and land package price fixed. So they couldn't raise it after 12 to 18, 24 months. And here's what ended up happening is the land didn't title after a year. It took just over 2 years for the land to title. There was delays after delays. It felt like it was never going to happen. I was wondering, is this a scam or something? Because, you know, it felt too good to be true at the time. But May this year, the land did title. Finally, you know, I went to go there to take photos of the land. I'll try to put up some pictures. And now they are building my house, and it's almost finished. If everything goes good, fingers crossed, I'll be able to move in November. And of course, it did pay off. Those blocks in Ballarat now in the same estate for around 500 square meters are selling for around $200,000 to $210,000. Now that doesn't mean those blocks are worth that. And this is something I'm worried if first home buyers go buy those blocks now, is at the end of the day, it's worth what the bank goes there and values it. The developer could sell that block for $210,000, but the bank would come in and say, no, this is only worth $190,000, and then you have to pay the difference. So you have to be careful. I don't know if, you know, Ballarat is going to be right to enter now, but a lot of hot spotters are saying, you know, Ballarat is going to be a good performing market. Who knows? But that's how I secured my first home with just $3,000. And I guess it did turn out well, that now all of a sudden people are moving regional. A lot of people are seeing that there is a lot more benefits to move out regional than in the cities. There's just as much amenities out in regional than in the cities, and Hopefully for your situation, if you can work from home, it may be better off. But then again, there are also some risks with working from home if they do offshore your work. Oh, so guys, I hope you enjoyed that story about how I bought my first home with just $3,000. I will be making a follow-up video when the build is done about how much everything cost me and if I did make or lose money. For my loyal viewers and subscribers still watching, you're awesome. And if you haven't already, smash the like button for the holy YouTube algorithm. It really helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't, subscribe. I'll keep you up to date on the latest property market and economic news. I'll keep you up to date on the latest property market and economic news. And of course, I'll see you in the next video.